Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode on the Speak Sense podcast with me, Osama Musa, Muslim Amir. And guys, today, please help me in welcoming our very, 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 very inspirational and special guest from Bradford, Sister Farida, who is a local development lead in Bradford, which means she's someone who's very hands-on in the community, and she works for a charity called Business in the Community. And we're going to find out all about that in just a moment. And she's also somebody who has survived domestic abuse. And inshallah, we're going to find out a lot more about that and her story on how she managed to survive this. And inshallah, she's going to share with us the journey of, the what's happened there and the divorce that she's going through. And inshallah, we can take inspiration from such a powerful and motivational sister in the community. And inshallah, I can't wait to hear of the characteristics and traits that make up this amazing personality. And of course, we already know, as you're from Bradford, you're going to have a character and personality that's full of life. As we hear, it's such a vibrant city, and it's just won an award for its culture, mashallah. And yeah, guys, it's help me giving a hand to welcome Sister Farida. Woo! It's amazing to have you on. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Walaikum assalam rahmatullah barakatuh. Thank you so much, Jazakallah. I really appreciate this opportunity. And just to be fair to kind of, my, I suppose, geography, although my work is in Bradford, I'm actually based in London. So I actually do travel up a number of times a month to Bradford when I have face-to-face meetings. And actually, a lot of people have asked me, why Bradford and why I took the role when it's so far from where I live. And actually, one of the reasons that, I suppose I was a little bit torn in terms of taking the role, but the reason why I took it, there weren't any other roles of this type that were being offered elsewhere. And actually, I felt that this role encapsulated everything that I'd done before, and some stuff that was actually going to stretch me and help me to kind of apply myself in other environments as well. But also, even though it requires, some degree of travel on my part and commitment to that, the thing is that actually you have to go to where the deprivation is. And although we do have pockets of deprivation in London, there wasn't a role like this that was on offer. But actually, Bradford has always been the place that has been the underdog. And I think that it really needed somebody from many of the communities that are here to actually work in that role, because actually you're already leaning on an open door when you are somebody that looks like me, because there are many communities here that I reflect, and they can relate to that, and actually they're more willing to discuss and work with you. And literally all the people here that I've worked with, absolutely amazing, subhanallah.
Okay, amazing. So one that caught me off guard. So when you say here, so are you in Bradford or are you in London when you're saying here now?
So right now I'm in Bradford. We had a very important event yesterday, which is called the Seeing is Believing event, which actually Prince Charles, as our patron, used to attend these. And over our 40-year history, we've invited around 28,000 CEOs on these visits. And so as part of this visit, what we do is we bring a number of national and international CEOs to come and really immerse themselves in a day in a particular place where we are focused on. So for them to really experience the issues, the drawbacks, the barriers, the highlights, the successes as well of, what is happening in this place, and actually what else they can do to actually make a difference in this particular location. Okay,
so this is actually very interesting, because obviously I thought you were from Bradford. So let's just quickly clear that up. You're from London.
Well, originally from Oldham, and then my family moved down to London, and then been there ever since. So I come here for work, but obviously now with this hybrid working, I'm able to do some of it online.
Okay, so what inspired you? Obviously, you said because of the deprivation. So do you actually have any connection with Bradford prior to this role, or was it this role that's just taken you there, and now you find yourself within the city of Bradford?
I do have some friends here historically as well, and I have been here on a number of occasions over the years, but other than that, really, I didn't really have any other connection to it. But actually, I just thought, you know, this is a place that, you know, if you look at it historically, I mean, back in, if you look, I mean, in this area where I am currently, which is the Impact Hub in Bradford, this used to be the textile quarter in Bradford, and it became known as Little Germany. And the reason for that is because following the Second World War, there were many Germans and many German Jews that came here and set up textiles mills in this part of Bradford. And actually, you know, they secured so much success that eventually it became, you know, the magnet for employment. And people from London, would you believe, were coming up for work in Bradford, because actually the textile industry and manufacturing industry was such a big thing. And the wool exchange that is still here, and the buildings are still here that you can see, you know, the architecture is testament to the legacy that they have had. So, you know, it has been a city of great success, and it can be that again. And it's that inspires me to work in Bradford, because actually there's so much so many great things happening in Bradford. And actually just recently, Regal, one of the food manufacturers here, who, you know, set up many years ago and have secured success through their own hard graft, really won the Queen's Award for Enterprise earlier this year. So and you know, are a multi-million-pound turnover business, and there are many others like that as well. So, you know, the success stories are here for people to see, and you know, there's no reason why other entrepreneurs can't secure success in a city like this.
That's amazing. And you know, but first of all, congratulations to the team at Regal Foods, and you know, that's testament to their hard work. And yeah, that's because obviously I've always heard of Bradford, you know, whether it's through the good they do, or you know, just the jokes that you know, sometimes come up from that sort of region. And it's amazing because obviously it clearly has rich history, and you know, is a place where I feel that a community is sort of a strong, well, it's obviously just an award for that, but I've always sensed that the community from Bradford, and anyone I've met from Bradford, they're always so proud to be from Bradford. They actually absolutely love it. So that's amazing. So very quickly, let's just go away from that then, and let's start with the, you know, right at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
So, I mean, I suppose going a little bit further back from kind of me, I mean, in terms of my father, and then this is just about, you know, how it sort of affected my life, I guess, is, I mean, he became an orphan when he was 15. And so he had the responsibility of all his family on his shoulders at that age. And he was in Pakistan at the time. And so he had his mother and, you know, many brothers and sisters to take care of. And so as a result of that, he missed out on education. And so he was absolutely passionate about ensuring that his own children got an education. And that's something that I'm really grateful for, because he really pioneered, you know, his daughters in particular getting an education, or, you know, securing success for themselves, and always was the person that was kind of pushing us, inspiring us, and, you know, and I think really developed that kind of sense of resilience in us as people. And, you know, I think he was a bit of a rebel in his mindset as well, because he was willing to challenge, you know, friends and relatives who, you know, had different views to him in terms of particularly educating their daughters. I think that kind of personality trait from him has really rubbed off on me, I think, and actually has made me very much a person that kind of doesn't take no for an answer, really. And if there's an issue, then it's about kind of finding a way to resolve it, and not being sort of satisfied with, you know, kind of just a mediocre response. But I grew up was born and grew up in Bradford, in Oldham. Listen to me, it's like the first thing that comes out of my mouth because I work here. I grew up in Oldham, and then was there until I was about 7 or 8, and then we moved down to London. And then we've been in and around London, and now just into Essex, where I live. I have 4 children.
MashaAllah.
2 boys and 2 girls. They're quite big now, mashallah. So my oldest is 23, and then I have a 22-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 15-year-old.
Wow, mashallah, I did not expect that. Okay, that's well, okay, that's incredible. I thought you were going to say they're like 10, 8, mashallah. Okay, you've done really well there, and that's amazing. So very, very quickly, how old was your dad when he migrated here?
He was about 23 when he came here. He came here in 1960. and he passed away sadly last year in September. May Allah grant him Jannah. And yeah, I mean, I think the anticipation and the sort of the thought process, I think, with my parents really, or my father when he first came, was, he'll work here for a few years and he'll make a bit of money and then he'll go back. But then, he invited my mother over, and then obviously because of the children, and then we were, at school and things like that, he didn't want to disrupt our education. So, like with many migrants to new places, I think once you start to lay down roots in a place and your children are at school and things like that, you're kind of reluctant to kind of move away from that.
And well, actually, as well, especially in that sort of region of Oldham, Manchester up north, obviously there's a large Pakistani Asian community. Obviously, we know in certain areas of England and especially in East London, there's obviously large Bangladeshi communities. But obviously, we know up north there's a huge, Manchester's pretty much all Pakistani, but maybe 1%. So, Alhamdulillah, and obviously that helps, obviously, because he would have been, one of the maybe the first or second generations to be here in that community. So that would have obviously as well helped.
And actually, I suppose in those early days, because there was a lot of migration and there was a lot of need for skilled labor in this country. I mean, I remember as a child, many recollections of, facing racism on the streets, from other children. And I remember, in terms of my parents being kind of first generation here, their sort of way of dealing with it was, just turn a blind eye, don't respond, kind of just keep a low profile and things like that. Fortunately, alhamdulillah, I had, older brothers and sisters, and we would sort of talk to each other about it. And we realized that actually this isn't good enough. We just staying quiet and turning a blind eye is not making it go away. The problem is just getting worse. So, as I started to see them responding back to taunts and sort of people making derogatory comments in the street and things like that, I started to actually realize that actually that's the way to deal with it, because the other children start to behave themselves when they realize that you're not going to remain quiet, you're actually going to speak up and you're going to stand your ground and defend yourself. And I think that's something that's really stayed with me all my life, really. And I think sometimes you don't realize how much you embody kind of that fight for justice and the fight for fairness and fair treatment until, like certain situations happen and you kind of reach a realization that actually, I think I've been doing that all my life. But, haven't always called it, sort of, the need for society to be diverse and inclusive. But, it's those early experiences as a child can really shape you in a very profound way.
That's amazing, and I completely agree with that. I think, especially when I guess you were growing up, and just from the age of your children and what you've just said there, I'm guessing that you were probably around the 80s was your childhood, maybe. So around that time, obviously, as well, in terms of like your older brothers and you and your siblings and your people around your age in that time, I guess there was enough of you as well to be able to now to respond to this, where you felt like, okay, well, if there's going to be this many of them coming at us, there's enough of us now to actually say, yo, relax. But okay, so obviously this actually ties into my next question, which is, what was it like growing up in the West for you? So obviously your parents aren't from the West, they weren't raised in the West, they're originally from Pakistan. So obviously that mix of cultures, which could allow for identity crisis to occur in an individual. So what was that like for you? And obviously for them, the challenge of trying to raise you a certain way that's culturally what they know, but obviously you're now in a British culture, which is not the norm. So so what was it like growing up for you in the West?
Well, I mean, as first generation immigrants to this country, I think that they wanted to hold on to the identity that they knew. And I suppose there's, some degree of comfort that comes from holding on to, the sort of traditions and the belief and, the sort of way of being. And sometimes even if that's not defined by Islam, but just the fact that there's that sense of security in what you know, as opposed to what you don't know. So I think that they were quite fearful of kind of society and what it had to offer. And I think because of that, they were, they were quite strict as parents, so it was kind of we weren't allowed to go and visit our friends. We weren't allowed to have friends over to our house. There was a lot of limitations, because actually I think it was more about them being quite fear driven and kind of not knowing what they're exposing their children to if they were to allow them to, do some of these things. And some of these things that were, I suppose, sometimes were, quite innocent as well, and didn't, weren't about sort of being influenced in a bad way. And so I think as kind of second generation growing up in this country, I think for me and my siblings, a lot of it was about really kind of trial and error and finding our way and understanding what to say yes to and what to say no to, and and things like that. So because it was very much a journey into the unknown, really. And I suppose in terms of as a child, I guess I grew up with quite a spiritual understanding of Islam, and not really kind of understanding the rest of it, and really in a profound way. So I was really fortunate that actually when I went to university at University of Westminster in London, I came into contact with lots of Muslims who were, where I had lots of discussions around, and actually was able to ask certain questions openly. Because I mean, if I, as a child, if I'd ever asked, does God exist, I would have been, shut down instantly. And the thing is that I suppose once you start to kind of explore these avenues a lot more, and you're able to do it in a non-judgmental kind of environment, where there isn't any, it's not about asking any, there's no such thing as a wrong question, or a silly question. And so I think when you're able to explore it in your own time, and when you are reached an age where you actually are looking for answers, then and there are people that can help you reach or find the answers, then that's really, really helpful, and it just opens up a whole new world to you. And I think that opportunity that I got at university was really the kind of changing point for me, and that's when I started to wear hijab. And I think it was a complete surprise to my parents, actually, because they really weren't expecting it, because in terms of the home environment, my father, he was happy for his motto was, when in Rome, do as the Romans. So he was well, I mean, he still wouldn't kind of qualify that to be completely that way. He was just kind of more keen for us to sort of blend into UK sort of culture and not sort of stand out. So he was happy with us wearing trousers, but he didn't want us to wear skirts. And he wanted us to wear dress decently, which he and so he was quite prescriptive about what he would allow, but he didn't insist on us covering our hair or anything like that. He didn't insist on Islamic dress. And in terms of traditional dress, that was very much salwar kameez, in the home environment, or when we went out, if it was any sort of cultural sort of function or a wedding or whatever. So I think that they found it quite surprising, but actually it was in a way a sort of breath of fresh air. And I think actually with siblings, you can often find some kind of resistance to things like that, because they feel that they might be pressured to dress in the same way and things like that as well. But I think it was something that actually then my mum also sort of adopted as well. And I think it was a really good thing for all of us in terms of our learning, and actually gave us the opportunity of really improving our own understanding in terms of our knowledge, and and just sort of asking questions and embracing areas of Islam which we weren't aware of before, and needed to understand in terms of obligations, and just that really deep sort of conviction that you develop then through asking the right questions and reaching a conclusion.
That's amazing, and I'm completely related. I can completely relate to that to some extent. But she says quite a few things there that I think are very relatable. So, for example, like the situation with friends, that was something that my family as well, my parents were very, very cautious of. And again, when you're a child, you don't really understand it. Like, we're invited to birthday parties, they wouldn't let me go, and that was that whole sort of thing. But you don't understand that they're trying to protect you. So when you're a kid and they're saying there might be food that's not halal, and there might be things that happen that you're not understanding as a child. You're like, yeah, I just want to go to the party. Like, I just want to go play bowling with my friends. But and it's alhamdulillah, it does sort of make sense. And when you grow up, actually, especially like I'm actually first generation. So I was born in Pakistan myself, even though I'm Palestinian. And
Okay.
then migrated to the UK. So, but all my siblings are born here. So I don't know if that makes them now second generation, because obviously I'm the one that actually migrated. But nonetheless, so I also get that sort of feeling of, my dad was actually the opposite. So rather than when in Rome, there was the Romans, my dad had that actually opposite view of we should actually stand up for our culture even more, so he actually didn't allow us to speak English at home because he was worried that we'd lose the Arabic. And ironically, the younger we got and my siblings, the less Arabic that was spoken or understood or even being able to be read or write. So, we start off with me who can read, write, speak fluently. By the time we get to like my youngest brother from, the first marriage from my parents, the language skills are not as good as they can be. And then obviously you touched on with your upbringing and how when you went to university, that was sort of religiously where you kind of really understood your religion. And that for me is so relatable, because when I went to university, that's where, let's say, I was reborn, in the sense of where I really truly found my religion. And there was, subhanAllah, when I found my religion at university, there were so many things I wish that they told us about the religion when we were growing up. Or they might have told us, but it wasn't delivered in the right way. So like smiling is charity, right? So I'm naturally someone who likes to smile and I'm quite joyful and positive. So this isn't something that was focused on when I was growing up. So all of a sudden now, if I just smile at people, I'm getting rewards. So imagine if all the ummah actually understood this, that, just smiling, forgiveness, forgive your brother. If you have a fight with your brother, it shouldn't last more than 3 days. And that brother is obviously a friend. So all these things, subhanAllah, that, I feel is amazing. And then again, like you said, when you actually understand who is Allah, what is the religion telling you actually to do, the life of the Prophet ﷺ, all of these things. And now you're obviously, when you're at university, so anyone watching that is just about to go to university who maybe isn't religiously there yet, obviously, first of all, don't put pressure on yourself. And second of all, the beauty of what I found with Muslims at university, if you're somebody who's able to go to university and actually study your religion or become a better Muslim at university, that is such a high level of taqwa and iman and faith. Because at universities where you have the opportunity to actually go absolutely crazy, right? When you're at university,
well, that's what they encourage.
It's encouraged, exactly. It's the environment, it's the community. I know a lot of people that might have actually go to uni, do what they do, and then come out, and then all of a sudden they're like, I've had my fun now, it's time to whatever. But what I found is at university, the Muslims at university that are withholding their deen are really the best of Muslims in their understanding, in their akhlaq, so the way the mannerisms. Because I'll be honest, especially those that are coming from abroad. So the international students that are Muslim in the UK that are still part of the ISOCs or are still in the masajid and stuff like that, you really understand from them and you really see how a Muslim actually is or behaves. That was what I found. So when I went away from the sort of British Muslims that I knew, me, my friends, the people that I was raised with, obviously we've got the British culture engraved in us. So there are certain things that we're just not aware of till you're actually there with someone who's, now you're at ISOC, you've got someone from Nigeria, someone from Kuwait, someone from wherever, everywhere in the world, and they're here in the UK, and all of a sudden they're like all the time in the masjid, the prayer room of the university, they're trying to make things happen here, they're giving you the right sort of dawah. They're not in your face like, brother, what you're doing is haram. They're in your face like, oh bro, do you know this about the religion? Or bro, like let's come read a bit of Quran with me and we'll do a bit of tafsir, and you're like, you're amazing people. You're away from your family. You're away from your culture. No one here knows you, but you're still here. Like, this is who you are. This is your faith. This is actually, and it just inspires you. It really inspires you to be like, okay, there's obviously something here that's going on. And for me, one of my biggest inspirations is, obviously I come from London as well, and there's obviously in South London there's been a big movement of Muslim reverts, right? People of Caribbean backgrounds, African backgrounds, European backgrounds, anyone that's from even deprived areas, because it's either if you're in the hood, it's either you go one way, which leads to XYZ, or you take up, for example, the other way, which could be you go to university, or it could be through religion that you manage to escape what you do. And I had one of my closest friends who was a Jamaican revert, and that was a big inspiration for me as well at uni, because I met him at university, and he's, you know, telling me his story, and I'm like, wow, like, you're someone who comes from a family where no one's Muslim, and you've gone through all these hardships to become Muslim, to learn a language you don't know, to learn how to read the Quran in its proper form. I'm an Arab, I'm born Muslim, and I'm like doing the opposite. So what the hell, why are you doing it? And then all of a sudden that knowledge and that education of your deen, and alhamdulillah, now I'm, you know, it's my favorite part of me is that I'm Muslim, and I love it, and I love my deen, and I love working with Muslims. And this is actually, you know, funny, because my next question is, what did you want to be when you grew up? So obviously when I was still, you know, 7, 8 years old, I always wanted to be a sheikh or an imam. And that's how strong my faith was at that time. So what was like your vision when you were older? What did you want to be?
I don't know. I don't think I really had an ambition of what I want to be honest. I mean, I remember when I was at school and when it was time to pick options, and my father went with me, and we had a teacher called Miss Garbutt. I remember it very, very distinctly, like it was yesterday. And my father was quite keen on me. You know, it was very much that sort of traditional approach of kind of doctor, accountant, lawyer, engineer kind of thing. And he was keen on me, you know, going down the sort of being a doctor route. And so he was kind of trying to kind of impress that on me. And he, you know, so when I went to pick my options, he was quite keen on me picking lots of the sciences. And the teacher was like, you know, how are you going to study, you know, to be a doctor? You're going to be so old by the time you're finished. When are you going to get married and have children? And it was like, and my father, when we went home, had some very select 4-letter words to say about her. So he was not impressed at all. But again, I mean, we can see how that sort of differential treatment of people from ethnic minority backgrounds was happening in the schools at the time by the very English-led schools that were, you know, in existence at the time.
Oh, sorry, that's really, just to pause you there, that's actually really deep. So you think that she wasn't saying actually to try and actually inspire you to pick something that was going to be, you're looking at it from the angle that she was actually trying to, maybe there was racial slur to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because, you know, there was a complete attitude of kind of discouraging, you know, women from ethnic minority backgrounds into going into or thinking about even, you know, professional qualifications or going down into a, you know, a career that was going to be, you know, defining success for them, you know.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's very, very, yeah, that's amazing. Because up until you said that, I was thinking that, you know, I was smiling, and I was like, oh, like, you know, maybe she's thinking of you for your best interest and stuff. But actually, that's amazing.
Well, no, I think it was more that, because obviously at the time, I mean, there was more of a kind of, I guess, a push for people, or for more women to kind of secure, you know, sort of their own career, and the theme, I suppose, of the time was actually women being more career women and putting their career first as opposed to putting their family first. So taking it from that angle, you know, and the way that she was looking at it was actually that, you know, there was, and I think in my career as well, I've sort of felt that from many white women that I've worked with, is that, you know, gender equality was only for white women, not for Black or ethnic minority women. And the thing is that, you know, they were not keen on you kind of educating or becoming self-sufficient or independent, or, you know, having your own mind. And that was very apparent in the way that they would kind of inspire you or not inspire you, as the case may be, in the school environment. But I mean, you know, sort of following on from that, I mean, I think you know, it's been quite good for me in terms of actually being able to steer in the direction that I wanted to, because I think when I got to sort of picking my A-levels, I actually quite liked the sound of psychology, because it was all about trying to understand myself better more than anything else, and understanding other people. And I think actually, and I had some really excellent lecturers at college as well, who really made the subject engaging. And then I went on to study psychology at university as well, which I'm really blessed, you know, having studied that, because I think it's really helped me to understand myself and my situation and other people a lot better. And it's funny, because my children say to me, oh, well, you haven't actually used your degree, because you know, you haven't kind of specialized in anything to do with psychology. And my response always to them is actually, you'd be surprised, because actually wherever there's people, you need psychology, because actually it helps you to understand people and the dynamic and teams and how they work together, and and what inspires and motivates people. And it's all about actually the hearts and minds when it comes to people, and that is central to everything that we do, whether that's looking at sales and why people, I mean, that's why now there's so much more refined study in things like the psychology of sales, the psychology of marketing, because it's all about what you see, what you hear, and how you translate the messages that you're being given into something that is relevant to you in your life. So I always kind of take that stance with them. But I'm really pleased that I was able to take that route. But also, I think from becoming more aware of my deen, actually, when I was at college, I was actually working part-time for Sainsburys as a student, and I wanted to wear hijab at work. And basically, when I spoke to the personnel manager there, it was a blanket no. He said that this is not in the employee handbook that we have, and so you can't wear it. So I feel that actually the grit and resilience that you develop actually fighting for your cause is something that is absolutely amazing. And I think without hardship in life, we don't learn those lessons. And I think a degree of hardship is really important for all people, because actually that's the only way that we learn, really, as human beings. And actually I was able to sort of champion that, and they still had meetings with all sorts of people. I walked out of meetings in tears because of the way that they were challenging me. And they just did not understand it, didn't get it. And then eventually I'd had enough, and then I left. And actually I went back a couple of weeks later, and my colleagues told me that they had now changed the rule, and that anyone who wanted to come to work and wear anything that was of a religious nature would be allowed to do it.
Wow. So, and was this a Sainsbury's branch in London?
It was, yeah, it was in East London.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you could say like you started the movement in that sort of area with that sort of
yeah.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And and even though I had to leave in order to make that happen, because I think for them the biggest thing was that they wanted it to be a decision that was from them as a corporate entity, as opposed to them bowing down or be seen to be bowing down to the needs of one employee. So that's the reason why it had happened that way. But I still walked out of there kind of really feeling triumphant, because I felt like if I'd not put up that challenge, they wouldn't have made the change.
Yeah, that's amazing. And actually, just going back to the study of psychology, it's funny because my brother's 15, is now just deciding what to study at college. He's someone who's very driven to be a business person, or someone who makes money, let's say. And he's asking us what to study and stuff. And I actually told him to study business economics and psychology. So I said the reason for that is psychology will help you understand people, how to deal with people. And like you actually spot on there with the psychology of buyers, psychology of marketing, and something that in my sales and marketing program, when I'm consulting businesses, I delve into. So it's something that is very, 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 very important. And actually, I wanted to ask you, what was, obviously, because you went from a non-hijabi to a hijabi, right? And that transition happened at sort of university, even though at college, when you're working at Sainsbury's, you were already thinking about it. But then it transitioned at university. Did you realize a difference in the way people treated you, the way they looked at you when you went into that transition from people you don't know? So the people you know, we can get into that, but the people that you don't know. So when you're just walking in the street, what was differences that you realized?
Yeah, I think, I mean, at that time, there weren't an awful lot of women who were wearing hijab. So for a lot of people, it was a new thing. You'd get stares, or you'd get kind of people saying things. And sometimes, people were kind of afraid to approach you and things. And a lot of the time, it was all about the sort of stereotypes that were around in society, that, a woman who wears a hijab, is illiterate, or doesn't know how to speak up for herself, doesn't have a voice, is being forced to wear it by somebody. All of those stereotypes really feed into the way that people then treat you, because they, rather than actually take the time to get to know you and speak to you and find out why you wear it, there's always that apprehension. And I think it sort of created, a bit of a barrier. But I'm pleased to see that, over time things have improved a lot more. And actually there's a lot more hijabi women, in the corporate sphere as well, and also setting up their own businesses and, succeeding as entrepreneurs. So I think, and actually, now finally, I think I'm starting to see a bit more being embraced in terms of mainstream media and things like that. I think I saw the first hijabi newsreader probably a few months ago, which is crazy to think that it's taken that long for mainstream organizations to embrace that.
Yeah, I'm talking about that. I was actually surprised because just when Ramadan started, I was out in shopping and I went to John Lewis, and this is when I really realized, okay, the Muslim audience, the big commercial or mainstream people have woken up to it. They had a mannequin. It was 3 mannequins. I actually posted it on LinkedIn, and they were wearing hijab, and it said "Get ready for Eid al-Fitr" or something like that. And this was just at the start of Ramadan, so they've obviously pre-planned this in advance. And I was like, wow, to see this in John Lewis, which is usually an affluent sort of shop, and it was by chance I went into John Lewis. I didn't buy anything from there. I never really do, but just by chance I went in there, and because they've got nice things in there, it's a nice setup, and I saw that and I was like, wow, for a place like John Lewis to do that because of their audience base. They know their audience base is affluent, middle class, predominantly Caucasian people. So for them to have that in there, what that does subconsciously for that audience is it makes it normal to them. That, okay, like the hijab is actually part of the culture now. It's normal. We have such a large community of Muslims who wear hijab, and this is, something that is off the norm now. And I think that is completely true in terms of, Muslims are people waking up to us. Look at Nike, look at Adidas, look at these, I think, is it Gucci? They're all doing like women headscarves now and hijabs. And
yeah.
Maybe it's because of the Arab money in the Gulf. I don't know. Obviously, there's a big audience that, but Alhamdulillah, it's good to see. And and for me personally, I think it must do wonders for the young Muslim to see this, because I'll be honest. I mean, growing up as a Muslim, especially as a Muslim boy, you didn't see many Muslim girls wearing hijab, right? And that's normal because of obviously the era that we grew up in, with all the hate that was happening and everything that was going on around the Middle Eastern world and whatever. But what I see now when I go in certain parts of London in particular, I'm truly in awe and amazed, and I'm just so inspired to see the amount of young Muslim girls wearing hijab.
Yeah.
And I think it's so amazing to see because, these girls are like secondary school, right? So that's where they're, going to be encountered to the most, they're learning about their bodies, they're going through these changes, they're, whether that's when, peak of interest between boys and girls because they're just starting to learn about that, whatever. And yet they're, in this sort of culture, able to wear their hijab, go on the streets. And Alhamdulillah, I always see them in like pairs or threes or whatever. So it's nice to see them actually, they also stick together, which is really, really cool. And I think that will spread across the rest of the UK eventually. Obviously in London, there's a big Muslim audience, and you'll find us in like West London, like in Acton or whatever, community there, in East London, Bethnal Green, you find a big community there and whatever. And I think, that's going to, inshallah, inspire the next generation of women. Because what will happen now is when you're going into the corporate space, you're going to start seeing an influx of accountants that are all hijabis. You're going to start seeing an influx of, the marketing team that are all hijabis. And you're like, wait, hold on. Like all of a sudden, people walking into a corporate office in like 20 years and, there might be a whole floor of just hijabis, right? Yeah. Because the obviously community is growing. So that's really amazing to see. And as a Muslim man, obviously living in the West at the moment, if I end up having children in the West and raising them here, it's just nice to be reassured now or see this. And, it just makes it feel safer, alhamdulillah. So going to your work, and obviously we spoke previously off air, mashallah, you've achieved many, many things, alhamdulillah. And what is your biggest achievement in your career, would you say?
In my career, gosh, that's a big question. Well, I think the biggest, I think I'd have to pick.
Before you answer, actually, give us just quick insight on your career, because obviously me and you spoke off air, but just so that all viewers can understand.
Sure, yeah. So I currently work for a business in the community, and I've been here for almost 2 years. Prior to that, I worked for Post Office Limited for 24 years. So all throughout having my children, everything, I've been working. In fact, I think in my whole life, I think I've been out of work for about 6 months earlier on, sort of after graduating, and then about 6 months after I took retirement from post office. So I retired in about 2019, and I was out of work for about 6 months, and that was more not out of work, but more me just sort of taking the time for me, really. I've done lots of different roles within that time. I've worked in branches, I've worked in sales, I've worked in running sales workshops for many of the smaller post offices. I've done event planning, and then I worked for about 5 years on a transformation program as an investment manager, investing money into about 8,000 branches that had, lots of improvements made to them. And then my last role there was as a contracts advisor. So, and then also in the last couple of years that I was there, I set up their first ever ethnic minorities network, which is a staff network. And actually it was about giving people from Black and ethnic minorities a voice within the organization, and also for people to actually understand, what is it that we bring and how do we enrich, the roles that we come into. And actually in about 2010, and, I actually did, I was working with MoneyGram, who were one of our clients at the time. And I sort of had a chat with them about running a promotion. And this is how, this is, I suppose, a definition of diversity and inclusion to me. So I spoke to them about running a promotion during Ramadan and during the Hajj season in a particular year, in that year, and they were able to put the people on the ground and promote it and everything else. And we had demographic data on various branches, and we focused on about 200 branches. As a result of the campaign, there was a 10% and an 8% uplift in sales. And the thing is that, at that time, the diversity and inclusion angle on many things was not really things that people were kind of listening to or hearing, So, and it just goes to show how, the actually talking to your employees in any business can really give you insights that you're, totally unaware of, and it can actually help you to ensure that your business thrives. So why would you not do it? And I think that's part of the reason why, the sort of success with sales and embracing of, the Muslim dress and, modest dress and things like that in many of the mainstream stores is happening, because actually I think now finally that realization has taken place that, the Muslim market is a huge market, and unfortunately for businesses, it tends to be the pound signs that define the change in behavior. I mean, not that, it hasn't happened in other spheres. They are actually embracing, the diverse, inclusive nature of societies that they serve, which is a good thing as well. So, so I now work for Business in the Community. I've been here for only 2 years. The first year I was here, I worked as a diversity and inclusion advisor. So my big success in terms of post office was that when I came here, I made a commitment to myself was that, I'd like to go back, and because we're a membership organization here, and post office were our members, I wanted to go back and ensure that they sign up to working much more comprehensively against the commitments they had made on the race charter that we encourage businesses to sign up to, and I was able to do that, and they actually signed up to additional work as well. The second commitment I made to myself was that as a survivor of domestic abuse, I want to ensure that I can empower and inspire other women who have been through this or are struggling with these sorts of challenges. And I now sit on a domestic abuse charity in Keighley in Bradford. And I think and my success as, in terms of as an inclusion advisor here, I was able to deliver about 4 workshops to Network Rail, which included about 1,100 of their staff, including their CEO and many of their senior managers. And I delivered our Let's Talk About Race workshop. And as a result of that, I was able to draft an email to their CEO from our CEO. And as a result of it, they came into membership. So, and they have 40,000 staff. So, and especially in terms of them signing up to a race partnership with us. So actually really helping to drive those race conversations and embracing people feeling comfortable about talking about race, which was really important for them. And they incorporated lots of aspects of that in terms of how they serve customers and everything as well. And in terms of this role, I guess the winning the City of Culture has been an absolutely massive kind of source of happiness and, and gratitude really for me, that, so many businesses that we've been able to bring in to be involved and support this has really contributed to that win. And so what we can make of it, in that year will absolutely be phenomenal for Bradford.
Wow, that's amazing. And especially the point where you spoke about what you were able to achieve with a company like Network Rail, obviously a very large company, and that you had a big part to play, a big hand to play in that, obviously being a driving factor for them to sign up and getting involved. And I think it's due to these conversations and these presentations that obviously we're able to see the changes within our communities, that are going to support and help our, BAME community in the future, inshallah. And it must give you a great sense of, fulfillment, being able to be somebody who knows that she's doing something for a far greater purpose, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. I mean, I think, for me, I think even when I worked at Post Office, I think the thing that attracted me to them as an organization was that their kind of mission and, was about kind of serving the community and doing what the community, needed help with, providing those services. And even when I came here as well, I think, my ambition, because actually I had the opportunity of delivering this Let's Talk About Race session at our one of our workshops in Post Office as well, to about 80 people. And the advisor that I was working with from this organization, really inspired me. And I just thought, what, that's the sort of organization I want to work for. And so I came here. The thing is that, it's about, some of it is about that self-belief and knowing that actually you can be the author of your choices, and you ultimately are the CEO of your life, which actually sometimes we don't always recognize that actually, there's a lot that falls within your remit in terms of decision making. And actually, it's about looking at where you're going to be able to work and apply yourself in a way that fits with your values and with the Islamic values and with serving humanity, in line with the sunnah of the Prophet and really, feeling that actually your work, it's like that old saying, isn't it? If you work to your passions, then work doesn't feel like work anymore. And it's absolutely like that. I absolutely love what I do because it gives me so much autonomy, and it's a role that it's almost like giving a potter a piece of clay and saying, go make something with it. And because it's all about, the relationships, the stakeholders, the end users, the community, the people you can impact on, and also, building aspiration and inspiring young people in terms of the art of the possible, and for them to be able to see that actually everything is open to them. They have, they have even more at their fingertips than, I had as a child. And, the avenues that they can take, it can just be so versatile, and they can, change and go on to something completely different if they want to. It's just really encouraging them to feel empowered to kind of take decisions about their life and their future. And I think, to be able to do that for people in Bradford is something that I feel very privileged about. And also, I think, going through a marriage, I think for me, that was very debilitating in many ways. I think that was, I suppose, part of my struggle in terms of really being able to harness what I wanted to do and what felt right for me. But I think I've always been a person that, kind of has a lot of fight in her, really. And, I don't give up. And I think that, developing that sort of level of resilience and grit is really important in life, and it's a really important lesson. And that's why, when we face challenges, we understand that these are part of our test. And and then the thing about these tests is that the exam comes first, but the lesson comes much later, when you reflect back and see what you've been through, what you've learned, what you got right, what you'd do better next time, and actually always kind of employing that level of scrutiny to your past experiences is really important.
That is very, very true. And actually, this ties into the sort of next element of what I want to find out from you is, if it ties in really nicely, is that I want to know what's been your biggest sort of challenge and lesson. If you want to look at life or career, I don't mind. But what would you say has been your biggest sort of challenge and lesson?
Well, I think my biggest challenge was probably breaking away from a relationship that I'd been in for so many years, considering, all the things around me and all the people that I was responsible for. Because the thing is, when you have children, I think, especially, as a woman, I think you kind of spend a lot of time wondering whether you're making the decision for you and you're being selfish, or whether you're doing it, whether it's the right thing for your children. And actually, are you experiencing harm through this? And how harm is defined, because the thing is, culturally, in communities, it can be defined very differently. And also because behaviors are really important in terms of what is normalized and what isn't. And unfortunately, in many cultures, domestic abuse and behaviors that relate to it can be normalized, which makes it very, very difficult to call it out and seeing it for being wrong and not normal, frankly, in terms of, how you're being treated. And some of that is defined by the thought processes that sit behind those behaviors as well. So really being able to go down to that level of detail and understanding it is a big challenge when you're kind of, you're trying to bring up your children, you're trying to take care of their education, you're trying to, be all things to all people kind of thing. You're trying to be the responsible kind of person at work and fulfill all of your kind of responsibilities there as well. And then you're trying to kind of be the homemaker and all these things. And I think, in many respects, I think women have many more challenges than even men do in our communities. And, and even in, from an Islamic point of view as well, because especially if you are working, it's almost like 2 full-time jobs. You're being a mother and a wife and, the homemaker and everything. You're also then going to work and doing all that as well. And then to actually be able to have time to step back and say, actually, what's happening with my relationship and where is it going and how is it working? And am I happy with this? Am I content? And actually always, working on things and trying to deal with them. But also you then get to a point where you've given somebody so many opportunities to improve and get better, that actually then you have to come to the realization that this isn't working for me and it's not working for the children, and I need to be the responsible person and call this out. Because actually a lot of the time there are societal influences that make you question and doubt yourself, in the sense of, what my relatives are going to say, what my family going to say, what my parents are going to think. Will there be people that will support me? Will I be heard? Will I be, because a lot of the time there is a lot of push to keep people together in a marriage, even when things are going wrong. I mean, in the first place, even having the ability to call something out and seeking someone's help and advice on something is very hard, because obviously there are a lot of things within a marriage that stay between those two people. And so actually, and also when you have a partner who kind of shows everybody else a very good face and, it behaves in a way that suggests that he's, wonderful at, being a husband and father, it's very hard to then call that out, because actually you'll get a lot of people who actually won't even believe you. So to actually be believed, and to be acknowledged for the experiences that you're going through is a very, very tough thing to face. And to then make that decision, but then to actually stand firm on it and see it through is the real test. So, I think in the initial kind of weeks and months following it, is the toughest part, but it does get easier. So anybody out there who is going through similar experiences, it's really about holding your ground, standing firm, and knowing that what you're doing is the right thing. I think that's been one of the biggest challenges for me. And then I think the other challenge that I kind of faced, which was kind of, out of my hands really, which was when I actually had my youngest child. So I actually nearly didn't make it. I had to have, I basically passed out after she was delivered, and my body was hemorrhaging basically, and I had to have 36 pints of blood. I had to be resuscitated 3 times. And clearly my work here wasn't done.
Oh.
And from a lot of dua from so many people around the world, I don't know whose dua was accepted, but definitely somebody's dua was. And we know that as Muslims, dua is so powerful that it has the ability to change someone's decree. And so it's really important to stay firm on that and know how powerful it is. That is the greatest form of charity that we can give to each other. And yeah, I mean, I guess, at the time, obviously, I was still married. And actually following on from that, I've gone through a divorce and still going through a divorce, and things. But, what it just demonstrates to me is that clearly, there were bigger challenges that I needed to face, and there were, children that I needed to support. And there were things that I needed to engage in to give back to society, to give back to humanity, and to serve humanity, and make sure that I can, sort of use this time to do good, to share what I've learned, to impact on and engage with people who can create change in society. And that is something that inspires me every single day.
Wow, that's amazing. Alhamdulillah, that obviously Allah allowed you to live on and be of somebody who's, doing the work that you're doing now. And mashallah, no, that is amazing. And I'm just in awe at the moment, because that was a lot of, mashallah, a lot of challenges that you've been through. And obviously I come from let's say a broken home where parents divorced, and it's through, again, I guess it was one of the driving factors was also sort of survival of the domestic abuse. Obviously it could come in different forms. It could come physical, psychological. It's in different ways. So sometimes people can't see the abuse, and that actually does make it harder for them. And especially that we know as Muslims that obviously the one of the plays of the devil, and the one that the devil, the shaitan, Iblis, gives the most recognition and award for within, is to break up marriages. I think there's a hadith that when all the devils get together and they're asked of, what did you do today? This one's like, I made this person sin. The devil's like, I did this for this person. The one that says, I managed to get 2 people to divorce, it gets crowned by Iblis as, you've done the best work today. So that also, knowing that, is obviously makes it even more difficult. And then the whole thing with culture and society, it makes it harder, like my mum, my dad getting divorced. Obviously my mum was, in England on her own. We don't have extended family here. It's just my mum, my dad, and my siblings. And, my mum had to go through that sort of hardship of, her family, what her family going to say, being on her own here. And also, what my mum had to go through, because she was the one that wanted to get divorced. She was the one that ended up leaving the house. Obviously her kids were left behind. So there was a lot of things, and mum was 7 at the time with 4 kids in the country she doesn't know. So there's all these hardships, right? So that's why I can really relate to your story and understand, how difficult it must have been. And, I salute you for being able to go through this burden and still be standing, because I've seen firsthand how challenging it is. And also, just very quickly for the viewers that are watching this, especially for the young men, Islamically, as a man, you're meant to be supporting your wife at home with the chores, and we get this example from the Prophet ﷺ. who used to treat all his wives with care, love, and support. He used to do his own washing. He used to sometimes do the cooking. He used to do the cleaning. He would support them. So don't get confused between culture and your faith. If you're someone who fears Allah and is trying to be a practicing Muslim, one of the ways to be a good practicing Muslim, as the hadith from the Prophet peace be upon him said, the best of you are those who are best to their wives. There's also another hadith that says your wife completes half of your deen. So you haven't completed your deen till you get married. Why is this? All of these things, right? So we need to be very careful. And if you look at the Quranic verses from Allah regarding marriage and how we should be with our wives. So all of these things, so anybody that's watching is about to get married or is married but at the very beginning or whatever, please just be very aware of this. And finally, I just want to leave you with this about the hadith where it says that the women are like a really arched rib, right? So they're made from the really arched rib of Adam, which is man. And if you're to try to straighten that rib, you're going to break it. And this is to illustrate to us that we need to be tender with them. We need to put up with, all the stuff that we as men might find challenging, like, the emotional roller coasters that they might take us on or whatever. But we need to be aware of how to treat them and be sensitive towards them, how to take care of them. And I'm going to just tell you guys now, if you give 1% to a woman, she'll give you 100%. And this is the beauty and the power of, the female race, whether it's your mother, your sister, your wife, your daughter. You'll see in any household, and that's why, the Rasul said what? Ummak thumma ummak thumma ummak thumma abik. Your mother, your mother, your mother, then your father. Why? Because the mother's always going to do much more for her children than the father will. It's just natural genetics. A wife will tend, if you give your wife good, she'll give you amazing. You bring your wife ingredients, she makes you a meal. You give your wife a house, she turns it into a home. From your semen, she gives you a child. These are things, and I can go on this. I'm very passionate about this topic, so now you've got me started. I could talk about this all day long because I know firsthand how some men are in relationships, and this has nothing to do with whether they're Muslim men or English men or non-believers. Sometimes it's societal, and sometimes it's just how men are because they're physically stronger, or they want things done a certain way. Come home from work, I want everything cooked to me, I want everything clean to me, and there's none of this working together. A relationship is two people coming together with compromises and working for a greater good as an equal. You're not, especially if you're someone who chooses your partner, when you choose them, you're taking them with all their luggage, the good and the bad. It's about compromising. It's about finding a middle ground. It's about understanding you're there to support them, not to, block them in, as some might say. So, as I said, I could talk about this topic all day long, but inshallah, let's keep it moving. What's one piece of advice you would give to a 20-year-old you?
I think it would have to be, just really believe in yourself, know that you can do this. And that I think, the biggest thing that has always given me grounding is knowing that no matter what happens, Allah has my back.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I love that advice. And quite a few people that I've had on the show and I've said this advice, and I love it because people don't understand the power of believing in themselves,
Yeah.
and learning what to say no to, what to say yes to, and really understanding what you deem as success. It might not, a lot of people fixated on money, but a lot of people aren't. So don't make money your ultimate goal. That's not actually what success is to you. I was speaking to a friend just the other day. He has a driving school, right? He has one car, it's his car. He goes out, he teaches people how to drive. He's driving instructor. And I said to him, oh, why don't you, mashallah, you're doing well. Why don't you get a fleet? Because, I'm sending him clients. And he's like, I don't have the time and whatever. He's like, and I said to him, why don't you extend it? Why don't you get a fleet? And he said, brother, I'm very happy with where I am. I don't need the headache. I don't need more money. Alhamdulillah. This is for me, alhamdulillah, very good. I get time to spend with my family. I'm in control of my time. And alhamdulillah, there's enough money for what I need. I don't need more than this. and I don't want the headache. And I was like, subhanAllah, that's amazing, because the brother here understood what success is for him, was very content and very grateful, because the things that are important to him, he's able to, be there for. And I think that advice is amazing. And very quickly on believing in yourself, just so that anyone who's watching this doesn't get confused. Believing in yourself doesn't mean that you don't have doubts. Don't get the two things confused. Believing in yourself means that I know deep down I can make something of myself. Even though I know I might not be the best at reading, I might have speech impediment, I don't have enough skills, I might need to learn, I might need to put myself through years of learning just so that I can achieve what I want to achieve. Yes, that's fine. Doesn't matter what faults you have, but believing in yourself just means that I know deep down that I can be of something that I want to be, or make something of myself that I want to achieve. And you'll find that the most successful people in the world, and I mean this not in terms of their money, in terms of people that have achieved what they want to achieve, that to me is what ultimate success is. Success is relative. You'll find them all saying the same thing,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's about identifying, okay, what are my strengths, what are my gaps, how do I address those, who can help me, who can support me, who can guide me, what do I need to learn, are there courses, are there avenues that I can use, what can I leverage within my network to give me the help and support that I need to secure that. And it's about knowing that actually we're all on a journey, and that journey is about some of that sort of self-realization. It's also about self-awareness, and actually and also kind of ensuring that you are affirming the things that you are capable of, that you are good at, and that you and a part of that is acknowledgement of the learning that you still need to do, because all of life is about learning, and we're learning all the time. That's something that we can never give up on, because actually the only time you're not learning is when you're not here anymore. And there's always opportunity to learn from everybody that you meet. And I think every encounter, every conversation that you have has the power to change your life or somebody else's. And I think it's really important to understand the essence of that, because that is the essence of human exchange.
That's really powerful. And what would be one tip you would actually give to our viewers today? What's one sort of piece of value you'd like to leave our viewers with today?
I think recognize that you will face hardship and you will face challenges. Embrace those, because you can't always see the goodness in that. And like the ayah of the Quran says, that you may face something good, but you may not understand that, and you may see or do something that is not good, but you may not always kind of see the value in that as well. And often like we say, hindsight gives us 20/20 vision. Often when we look back on what we've been through, we realize what we have gained from that, but also maintaining a level of self accountability, and questioning yourself, and having that inner voice, that inner conscience that reminds you of where you've not got things quite right, and adjusting. And that's it's like being a sailor on a boat. You're constantly dealing with the direction of the wind, the power of the waves, the storms, the sunshine, all these different elements. And this is what life is. Life is about steering that boat safely and and securely, and I think always having that sort of sense of what else, and how can I kind of make improvements to ensure that tomorrow I'm a better me than I was yesterday. And that's the only comparison that we should always be making.
I think that's super important for anyone watching that. And I think that don't forget that obviously as Muslims, because obviously our audience inshallah is predominantly Muslim, and we're Muslims, and we should always remember that, as Allah says, inna ma'al usri yusra, with hardship follows ease. And as you rightly pointed out, you might think something is bad for you, but actually it has good in it, you just can't see it. So and vice versa, you might think something's good for you, but it's actually bad for you. So always trust in the qadr of Allah, which is the decree of Allah, and always make dua, which you already stated is the best form of charity that one can give another person. But also it's, as the hadith says, it's silahul mu'min, it's the weapon of the believer. For yourself, make dua to Allah, continuously make dua to Allah, because even the dua that isn't accepted in the here and now or in our lifetime is something that stays with Allah on the day of judgment. And Allah will then, repay you with that. Okay, so very quickly, I would just like to, before we go into quick fire round questions, I want to ask, what do you prefer, being an employee, or, because of, for our viewers, what would you prefer, being an employee or having a business? I know you don't have a business, but would you rather be a business owner or an employee?
So actually, over many years, I have also managed a portfolio of properties as well. So I have kind of my own business as well.
Okay,
and actually, alhamdulillah, I mean, I do prefer having that autonomy and, and running a business myself. So I do like that side of things. And I do have, there's some side hustles that I'm kind of involved in as well. So I guess, yeah, I mean, I think the level of autonomy you have in running your own business has got to be the best thing ever, I think, because, you're kind of steering the ship, as it were.
Okay, that's amazing. So there we go. There we have it. And you're obviously someone who prefers being a business owner. That's amazing. So very quickly, we'll dive into the quick fire round questions. But just before I do that, I just want to quickly find out, and I ask this to all my viewers. Do you have a sort of like a routine in the morning, or an evening routine, a morning routine? Do you have anything like that that sort of helps you start the day right or end your day in a certain way?
Yeah, I think I'm very much a morning person, so kind of that sort of morning routine. I try and get to the gym in the morning, and then just kind of getting everything ready, setting stuff up for my children before I leave to go to work if I'm going to the office, and just preparing the day, so kind of running through the schedule and see what I've got planned for that day, and just putting in any prep that I can before kind of the first meeting starts or whatever in the day. So that's and actually I think through the kind of working at home and everything else, I mean, I'm not a kind of working at home kind of person. I'm very much kind of people person. I like to be in the office and things like that. So I think I sort of lost that kind of getting ready for the office thing. So I think I make a priority of doing that in the morning. And I think for different people it's different things, but I think when I get dressed, and I think when I put perfume on, that's the last thing I do when I get ready. And so that for me is mindset of being ready for work. So that's the kind of, I have to go through that, and I think that's really important for me.
Yeah, I guess maybe I should start putting my shoes on at home if I'm working from home, so it feels like I've stepped out to work, but I'm actually still at home. Might have to do that.
Yeah.
The missus might tell me off because we have carpet, but that's I'll have to maybe just buy some shoes just for the house.
yeah, exactly. I think it's quite symbolic, but I think it does make a difference in kind of just making you kind of putting you in the mindset of being ready for work.
No, it does, especially when working from home. If I stay in like sort of casual wear, that mindset is not there for work. But as soon as I put a shirt on, I'm like, even if I'm just at home, just wearing this attire and having that space of, okay, I've worn this attire because I'm at work, it does sort of help. And I think having a routine is super important. So anyone that's out there, it doesn't have to be a morning or evening routine. It can even be just a midday routine. Just something that just gives you that feeling of sense of consistency, persistence, discipline is really important for us. Okay, you a burger or pizza type of person?
Pizza.
Pizza, nice. Do you put your socks on before or after your trousers?
After.
Okay. Brushing your teeth before or after breakfast?
Before.
Before. Okay. Do you prefer movies or series?
Series. I think it keeps the momentum going because you've got the questions at the end of each one.
Yeah. What's your favorite series?
I don't know if you've watched this series on Netflix called Lupin, which is a French kind of what is he? Like an investigator. And it's funny because it's in French, and I watch it reading the English subtitles, but it's really gripping. It's a very interesting one, and actually when it comes out I have to binge watch it and then I'm left wondering at the end of it again. Then I have to wait like I don't know how many months before the next one comes out. It's mad,
Yeah,
but
no,
really interesting.
I'm like that series. I just binge watch them. So I was like, if I start a series, I have to finish it. So it's, but they're very good. Series are very good.
But I think because there's almost in you're sort of getting in the mindset of this guy and how he's thinking. I think that's the aspect that I like about it.
So it's like a deep stuff. It's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, and it ties back to your sort of psychology background as well.
Yeah.
Do you prefer personal development books or novels?
Personal development.
Personal development, and well, you already answered this question, but business owner or employee?
Well, I mean, even though I enjoy the autonomy of being a business owner, I mean, I think the access that you have to different people and different stakeholders through working in a business is quite amazing as well, especially in what I do now. So I think that opens different types of doors, I think.
That's amazing. Jazakumullah khair for tuning in today and for attending this podcast with me and for being here. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege. Guys, please help me give a round of applause to our sister for joining us. Thank you so much for being here. And is there anything that you want to, where people can access you? Do you want to share that information here? So I'm going to put it in and around in the link in the comments, in the description. I'll be putting links to your pages. But is there anything that you want the guys to know, or where to access you, where to find you?
Yeah, I mean, happy for anyone to access me on LinkedIn. Have any further questions? Want to have a chat about anything? Kind of want to engage in any other conversations, or in terms of Bradford, any particular work that you're interested in that I'm doing that you can get involved in. Yeah, more than happy for anyone to just message me on LinkedIn or send a connection request. I will get in touch. Thank you so much.
Jazakumullah khair for tuning in, and inshallah I'll see you guys on the next episode of Speak Spence podcast. Sister Farida, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure learning about your experiences and being inspired from your journey and your story. And alhamdulillah, I've got lots of value today. So inshallah, you guys have got lots of value. And that's it from us today. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk, and see you on the next video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.